Oh, drop the camera. What a start. So he drops the camera as soon as it goes live. Brilliant stuff. Well, that's going to be comedy gold for the channel. Welcome to the Gooner Talk, to the most brilliantly timed live stream that you've ever seen in your entire lives. But yeah, I mean, fantastic stuff that we've supposedly agreed a fee for Nicolas Pepe. We're going to talk all about that and the latest Tierney news. But if you're enjoying these series, so much so that I'm enjoying them so much, I clearly want to drop the camera half the time. But thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching all of these videos. It really is an absolute pleasure. Still trying to get the light right. I'm absolutely a professional at this by now. And basically, I'm going to start off with what has been, whilst yes, Pepe news is great, whilst Tierney news is definitely improving, and I've put in the title saying confidence up, because confidence is definitely up amongst the Arsenal fan base. I want to start this off by basically saying what I put in a tweet earlier on in the day, and that is that I'm going to announce the fact that next season, or this season rather, now because we are into this season, that I will be joined by both Drew and Graham Brooks, two people that you know very well from their time on here. You know Drew from obviously all of his German expertise, you know Graham from his time here, and obviously he does his stuff for Same Old Arsenal and Arsenal Fan TV. And both of them will be joining me on the tactical breakdown series for next season. Every single game we're breaking down in a tactical, analytical way, completely different to anywhere else you'll see on this platform. So you'll want to subscribe to tune in for that and get the latest or basically that you could ever dream of in terms of tactics and analytics. So that will be there for next season. So really looking forward to that. But what we hope to see next season is what you're here for, and that's to talk about Nicolas Pepe joining from Lille. Now, hopefully, we will see this deal done in the next week or so. It seemingly has not been a deal which has been one of those that Raul says, we've been working on our transfers for months on end. And this is definitely one that's come out of the blue kind of as a reactionary, I don't want to use the word backup plan, because talking about someone of his quality and using the word backup plan doesn't seem to equate perfectly. So if we talk about this guy more as an alternative to Wilfried Zaha. Obviously, Arsenal bid for Wilfried Zaha early on. We realised it wasn't going to happen. Everton supposedly coming in with about £60 million for Zaha. Arsenal don't seemingly think they want to compete on that type of level, and maybe they don't want to give Manchester United that 25% sell-on fee either. So if you think about the fact we're now going with a £72 million bid for Nicolas Pepe, I think it's a great deal. I think it's exactly what the fan base needs. I think it's everything we've ever dreamed of. Tell me in the chat box what you think of. Wilson saying hi, thank you, mate. I swallow car. Oh no! Nearly, I didn't finish it. I nearly did. I nearly did. But he's new to chat. Very inventive name. Nearly got me. Nearly. Very close. Zlatko Foric says, press the like button, people. Please do. Please press the like button. Jar Triumph says, I'm scared that the medical is too far away. Yeah, I'm scared too. I think that all these deals can get hijacked at any possible moment. See, it was so close, wasn't it? I was so close. But yeah, these deals can happen at any moment. And if someone else comes in and hijacks it, you saw how Spurs tried to hijack the Saliba deal. They tried to hijack, or we basically hijacked their Ceballos deal and managed to get that over the line. So nothing can be say it's done until we see that it's on the Arsenal website. CXY, how can you... Oh, for goodness sake. This is going to be a thing now. Tom Lee says, Spurs break our transfer record, Arsenal hold my beer. Yeah, I think it's brilliant that we're actually competing. It's a thing, so many weeks ago now, I put out that tweet saying that when the news broke that Spurs were basically trying to rival us for William Saliba, I said if Arsenal have got any bottle and ambition, they won't allow this to happen. And they didn't allow it to happen at all. And now we're going on, we actually superseded them for Ceballos, and now we're going in for Nicolas Pepe. It almost doesn't seem real. If you want to get and to be honest, I'll be really honest in saying the feedback from earlier today's show, in which I talked about not William Saliba, stuck in my head now, about Nicolas Pepe in comparison to Wilfried Zaha, I did a tactical breakdown on both of those, comparing their stats. It was a very in-depth video. It was extremely, basically, probably the most in-depth video I've ever done on this channel. I looked at the shots. So we looked at where the shots were taken from. We looked at what sort of benefits we would get from both of them. We looked at the different types of goals they score and where they're scored from. We looked at their position on a heat map and how they, the difference between where they sort of play their style. Wilfried Zaha moves towards the byline more, whereas Pepe likes to cut in much further away from the goal line. So all that stuff was in that tactical breakdown. So if you haven't checked it out already, if you're watching back, the link will be in the description. But please go back and answer that, or go and watch that and leave your comment in the description about what you think about both players. Are you actually happy that Pepe's the one we're going for, or would you have rather us gone for Wilfried Zaha? In terms though, what's going on my screen there? In terms though of Kieran Tierney, there's been a lot more recent news dropping about the Scotsman. Supposedly Arsenal were a lot more confident, according to Sky Sports, that this deal is going to get done. We knew that we'd hit their £25 million valuation. The only difference is that the structure of the deal wasn't what Celtic wanted from that. They wanted a lot more money up front, and we at that time apparently weren't willing to do that, which still seems odd when you think about how much money we're willing to spend on Nicolas Pepe or Wilfried Zaha, yet we couldn't step up a little bit extra towards Kieran Tierney. Now, obviously, the structure of the Nicolas Pepe deal will help out with this. Supposedly, the deal is structured in a certain way so it fits our budget for this season, which for me shows fantastic negotiation skills by the Arsenal team. They get so much criticism, and if this deal gets done, you really, really have to sort of think about the praise and the good things and the positives that this team have done. Yes, we criticise them. Yes, we slate them when they don't do enough. But if this gets done and we have a transfer window where we brought in the youngster like Martinelli, we brought in someone like him and Saliba, for instance, those young players that Sanyeli came out at the start of the window and he said that we need to be focused on developing young players, bringing in the younger talent, because we can't compete and bringing in the most established players in the world. We can't be going out and buying established world-class talents from other teams at this moment in time, because we're just not at that position. So we need to buy these players young, identify them so they get some sell-on value for later on. We've done that with Saliba and with Martinelli. We've also been able to cover financially the loss of Ramsey with bringing in Ceballos for a loan deal. Supposedly it was something like 15 million, but I don't really think that's true. I can't see it really being true that it was 15 million for a loan fee. I think it probably was less than that. There's been no real confirmation on that yet, and as soon as there is, I'll try and put a tweet out to educate you all as to what it was. But that's obviously covered the Ramsey thing. If we then go out and buy Nicolas Pepe, which brings in so many more goals from wide position, we've sort of been stumped and needed this wide player for so long. We've got Aubameyang, we've got Lacazette, we had Alexis Sanchez, but we never really had that striker to play with Alexis Sanchez, other than when Lacazette obviously joined for those 6 months before it hit January and he went off somewhere. We've never really had a front three for so long that all had goal scoring quality, all had the ability to really poach goals, create goals, and work as a unit. If you play Lacazette through the middle, Aubameyang on the left, Pepe on the right, you've got a fantastic amount of goals and movement and speed and pace that you really don't get amongst any other teams in the league, besides maybe Liverpool with their front three. But even then, Firmino as that central striker, it doesn't have the same rapid pace that these players do. The only issue with it is that I hope that teams don't work us out very quickly. Again, I hope that Unai Emery's rotational skills, and now the fact we've got players like, for instance, Martinelli or Reece Nelson coming through, that we can rotate very well. We can keep things unpredictable and use that to our advantage. Let's see what some of you guys are saying in the chat, and hopefully none of you are going to try and catch me or nearly catch me out again. William Saliba is in the chat. Thank you for joining us, William Saliba. He says, I can't wait to play for Arsenal. Jar Triumph says, I know their Man U fans and Liverpool fans are very hurt by this. Yes, I think they are. Nimsy Lot says, I say get Pepe and Everton Suarez, or Suarez, I don't know how it's pronounced. Getting them both would be, I don't know what to say, it'd be a waste of money. I'd rather go and get Pepe for 72 million and spend 30 million on a centre-back. Surely that should be where we're going with our money. Surely we'd be looking at someone like Armando Izzo, someone like Dan Axel Zagadou, maybe Regani, someone we looked at. I just think we should be going out to sign a centre-back that's going to be starting this season and really big us up in that defensive area. Dylan House says this would show we're still a big club. It definitely would. Tom Lee said midfield tracking runners is a big task this season. Yeah, obviously I did a video basically talking about what the lineup I thought would be for next season. I'm trying to do it every month or so, so I'll do one just before the start of the season again. And the midfield three that I put was Torreira, Xhaka, and Ceballos in sort of a two number eights with Xhaka and Ceballos and Torreira playing behind them. I'm starting to lean towards taking Xhaka out. Now, many of you, long-time listeners, will know I've backed Xhaka for quite a long time, but I've not held back my criticism when he's deserved it. I'm interested to see a midfield of Torreira, Guendouzi and Ceballos to see how that would work, because I think that you've got a lot more energy from Guendouzi. He needs to develop, he needs to get better. I'm interested to see about Willock as well. Willock could possibly be someone that plays next to Ceballos. There's been a lot of confidence in his play, a lot of stuff that really could be beneficial for the club by getting him integrated into the team. Who knows? He could become a really, really promising talent. So that midfield three of Torreira and Ceballos for sure. It's just that third midfielder that I'm not quite sure on. There's also the opportunity when we come up against teams that are in a lesser position in the league. I think someone who impressed during pre-season, and I know he divides opinion, I have given him untold amounts of criticism, but Mesut Ozil had a really, really good pre-season. Think about those three, Pepe, Aubameyang and Lacazette, with Ozil in behind, with Ceballos and Torreira there in sort of a 4-2-3-1 possibly, or a 4-3-3 with a number 10 playing behind the striker, being Mesut Ozil with Ceballos slightly deeper. Ceballos can play deeper. He has got the defensive skill. If you looked at the tactical breakdown on Danny Ceballos, you saw that actually his defensive stats really, really did outweigh Ramsey in many areas. So that's not something I'm concerned about. Matthew De Souza says, Tom, do we see any outgoings to fund these deals? That's the really intriguing and odd thing about this window, is that we're not seeing any outgoings whatsoever. And look, we thought we'd lose Mustafi. We thought we'd sell possibly Xhaka. We saw El Neni would go. We thought Jenkinson could go. We thought Chambers could go. We thought that people could go on loan like Nelson. But these players just haven't gone. We've lost Ospina, and that's and Xavier Amaechi is looking that he's going to be going to Hamburg, it seems, for €2.5 million. Which was inevitable. He was always going to leave. There's never been too much faith in him. But I really thought that we would have moved on some players, and we just haven't. And there's a couple of reasons for that. I think they're fairly obvious, and most of you are very good with your football knowledge, and you'll know this by now. But it's very obvious that obviously they're on wages which people don't want to pay. Arsenal are holding out for a money which they're just not going to get. El Neni, he's a sub £10 million player. Koscielny is a £5 million player, especially considering his situation. And Arsenal are trying to get so much more for them than they're actually worth. So that's probably why. Let's carry on looking at what some of you guys are saying, talking about. Let's have your thoughts on Pepe and Tierney. Do you think we are actually going to sign them? For him, Hussein says Sky Sports are reporting again that Tierney is close. Yeah, if we can get Tierney in to provide that left-back cover. You know what's really ironic is since the Ozil thing with the Kolasinac situation, which was absolutely awful, people have been saying how good Kolasinac and strength he is, and if only he had defensive skill, he'd be an absolute beast in that position. Emery has actually come out and said he's working on the fullback situation. He wants Maitland-Niles and Kolasinac to be able to play as fullbacks, not necessarily just as wing-backs, so he can play in a back four formation, giving more freedom for the midfield to play more players in there. But if we can bring Tierney in, we did a video looking at Kieran Tierney, and Brian McVeigh from Reed Celtic was on the show talking about how good he is, basically, and how much athleticism he's got, and how he thinks at the same age that Robertson was at when he was the same age as Tierney. Tierney looks better than Andrew Robertson did at that age. Now, there's no guarantee, of course, that he's going to then go on to be successful and be better than Andrew Robertson, but you don't want to miss out on someone like that, especially when you've got some excellent cover in Kolasinac. That's a really good bit of competition going on. Monreal, we know, is coming to the end of his time, but it's good to have him as backup. He can play as a centre-back and a back three. Even if it's desperate and we need someone to play centre-back and a back four, he could do that. So competition is good. You want to see that. You want to have rotation throughout the league to keep players fit. Tierney has had injury issues as well, so it's strong that you keep one of your competitive left-backs in the squad at the same time. Tom Lee says, I thought Pepe was younger than 24. Yeah, so did I, if I'm honest, before I really did the research into him. I thought he was younger, but for me, that's fine. He's coming in with a lot of money. If it was someone like a 20-year-old for £72 million, unless it's the likes of like Kylian Mbappe, you're not going to be paying anywhere near that much for a 20-year-old. So for a 24-year-old, someone who's established themselves over the last 18 months at Lille with a fantastic run of form under their new manager, under Bielsa, I think it was, under Angers, I want to say it was Angers, I think it was. He just wasn't anywhere near as good at Angers, and then under Bielsa, it weren't great either. So if we're talking about someone like Nicolas Pepe being 24 years old, I think that's a good age to come into a club to then establish a 5-year contract until he's 29 years old, goes through his key years, and if we were to lose him at 28, you could get a hell of a good fee for him in that case, because I know we don't like thinking about players needing to be sold, but at the end of the day, you want to sign players that are going to have some sell-on value. You look at Liverpool, if they can sell Lallana, they'd be looking to sell him for about 20 million quid. If they could sell Henderson, they'd be looking for selling for a lot of money, and they can improve on those players with the money. They're a self-sustaining situation exactly like ours, and you need to be able to bring in players that you know that you could get some sell-on value for. You see what Chelsea do with their loan system, loaning players out for how God knows how many players they loan out, and then they make a lot of money based on what they sell from those players. They sold a couple of players to Germany, I think, for quite a fair few millions. You've got the likes of Callum Hudson-Odoi, who's been looked at by Bayern Munich for tens of millions of pounds. We need to build up that repertoire and that portfolio of players to get us in a much more financial position, so that when we come to signing players like Pepe and like Tierney, we don't have to worry about the restrictions of finances. We need to get back into the Champions League, and it's desperate that we do. It really frustrates me still seeing that how many people were like, there's no point being in the Champions League. We're not at the level where we can compete. What's the point of playing in that competition if you're just going to go out in the last 16 every single year, year upon year? Well, I'm sure that a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of Ajax fans and even a lot of Spurs fans would have thought there's no way they're getting to the semi-final or the final of the Champions League, but they did. So it's a cup competition at the end of the day, and you've got to be in it to win it. And the financial backing that comes from it is untold, and it's priceless. Which is an ironic term to describe amount of finances. It is necessary if you want to be a top club. You need to be in the Champions League. So it's a load of bollocks, basically saying that we should be in the Europa League because we can't compete in the Champions League. We should be in the Champions League, getting that financial backing, being more attractive for players, and possibly signing players that we might not have done had we been in the Europa League. Questions coming in from the Mr. Arsenal podcast. He says, do you think Zaha was possibly used as a smokescreen by Arsenal to throw everyone off the Pepe scent this summer, hence why they only bid 40 million? It's a good theory. I don't think there's too much credence to it, though. I genuinely think that Crystal Palace have played extremely hardball with them this summer. They weren't going to let him go. If Everton sign him for 60 million, then I think your theory has a lot more credence to it. But to think that we've gone in for what's his face, Pepe. I'm already forgetting his name. We've gone in for Pepe at £72 million. Something like that, I think, is really key to Arsenal's success. And that's pretty much what it is. Let's look at some of you guys are saying. I think that when we're looking at I haven't stretched out. So Antonio, it's never great to see a youngster go. It's not. You don't want to see one of the youngsters leave, especially when they're really highly rated. He was getting interest from across Germany. I'm surprised it was Hamburg that actually came in for him. But if you can get something like 2.5 million, people think about how annoyed people were when we lost Jeffrey Adelaide to Angers, and he only went for like £1.5 million, and now he's being linked with like a just under £20 million move away because he had a fantastic under-21 tournament in the Euros. But these players, they're not getting into the first team. They're frustrated with the lack of a route into there, and that's something about Arsenal's system that has to change. We have to show the youngsters that we've got that ability to see that they've got a route through. You're seeing it now with Nelson. We're seeing it with Willock. Even Zach Medley's said he's being promoted to the first team. So to show that these youngsters have a way through to the first team, I think is the perfect way to do it. Simon says predicted lineup, please, for next season. In terms of a predicted lineup, Leno in goal. Bellerin, it's just including everyone's fit. Bellerin, Holding, Socrates. I still don't think we're going to sign a centre-back that's going to start. I really don't. Tierney at left-back, I think we all sign him. Torreira, Ceballos, and I'm going to say Guendouzi, I think, over Xhaka. And then a front three of Lacazette, Aubameyang, and Pepe would be brilliant. You can obviously put Ozil in there as a number 10 in place of either Guendouzi or Willock or Xhaka, possibly against some of the smaller teams to try and go all out for the win. Wilson says the Gunners need to promote the youth for the first team and sign quality players. It's as simple as that. It really is, mate. It really is as simple as that. St. Colombo says happily up their agent fee. I mean, it seems that there's too many key players in the media pushing this story that it wouldn't be true. In the title of the video, I've put medical question mark. Obviously, I don't want to come out here saying like I know that there's a medical, but But there's been reports that a medical is in the pipeline and it's meant to be booked in for next week with an announcement possibly later on. And if that is true, Arsenal have accelerated this deal so fast and got it done so quickly. And it's a testament to the team, I say again, to get this done. Papa Amara says, my worry is Xhaka. He is not learning and growing, still giving the ball away. Yeah, it's always going to be that. But people said I was extremely brave putting a tweet out a little while back, basically saying that I'm giving all the players a clean slate. They came back and said, you can't say you can give everyone a clean slate because we've got Mustafi. Mustafi's awful. We've got Ozil. Ozil doesn't play enough games. We've got players that just give the ball away. For me, it's a new season. Last year was a transition year. We knew that for Emery that was the case. It was always going to be difficult. And so this year, even Mustafi, until he makes a mistake, I'm getting behind him. I want to be at the Emirates, shouting out, singing for my team, and that's what it's got to be. That's simple as that. Because we've got to get behind the players. We've got to try and get back into that Champions League, and the best way we can do that, beyond signing players and playing well, is making sure the Emirates is an absolute fortress, and we can do that with our voices amongst anything else. Zakaria Amar says, "What centre back would I get? I'd get Armando Izzo." I've really liked the look at him since I did the tactical breakdown on him. I like him a lot. And I'm thinking realistically, because if you said you can get anyone, yes, I'd go for like Upamecano of RB Leipzig because he's fantastic, and he was when he was at Red Bull Salzburg. I was gutted because obviously people who know the channel very well. I follow Red Bull Salzburg in Austria quite a lot, and I was gutted when he left. I was gutted when so many players leave, like Naby Keita or Haidara, and they move, or Sabitzer as well, who go back to RB Leipzig. It's frustrating because you want to see those players flourish. But Upamecano is a brilliant player. Who could do a lot. He's big, he's tall, he's bulky and strong, and he's fast. And I think that he could do a lot for this Arsenal team. Jalse says, David, know if this interest at Arsenal board are making a terrible mistake. Interesting that you think we're making a mistake. Medley and Dominic Thompson should be there in the first team. Hope you can do a tactical breakdown on the Arsenal youngsters. Yes, good idea. Obviously, people who know I'm a teacher, so I've got a nice 5 weeks off of work. So I'm going to be doing plenty of work while I'm not on holiday, of course, on the channel. So hopefully some tactical breakdowns and some of the youngsters will be out as well. Linda Fernandez says, do you think the Tour of America points to better performances on the road this season? Possibly. You can't ever read too much into pre-season games because, of course, they are, just as the name says, pre-season games. So you're never going to see the ultimate competitiveness. But I think we saw a lot of positives. Martinelli looked great. Willett looked great. Ozil shows he cares about their development as well, which was great. There was so many positives to take from it. The new kits are fantastic. People saying that I should get the Gooner Talk on the back of the shirt because I said I wanted to get Tobias, and they're saying, be true to your name. But I am true to my name, but I just think it's a bit, it's just a bit odd if I put the Gooner Talk on the back of the shirt. Nimsy Lot says, what happened to that Brazilian Kahneman dude? I believe Kahneman's actually Argentinian. He does play in Brazil. Sort of the deal just went quiet on that one. I'm not sure why. Who is the more attractive proposition, Arsenal or Spurs? Oh, Arsenal. It's an obvious question, Wilson. It's an obvious question. Samuel Jacob says, Zach Medley is looking decent. Give him a couple of years until he fills out a bit and he'll be a unit alongside Holding or Saliba. Yeah, Zach Medley looks technically good. He's quick. He's got skill. We can pass the ball. All things you need if you want to be in Arsenal. Daniel Martin says Bolly would be good. I'm assuming that's Bolly from Wolverhampton. Yeah, Wolverhampton have got a lot of good defenders, actually. Connor Cody is the one I would personally go for. If I had a choice. Hasala says, is Pepe overrated because he takes penalties? No, he's not overrated at all. Go check out the tactical breakdown here. He supersedes Wilfried Zaha on so many different levels. Gary Hardy says, people who say we will be unbalanced with Alba on the wing forget that Liverpool play with Salah on the wing. Alba tracks more than Salah does if you look at the heat maps from the previous season. Interesting. Maybe that's something we could look at, how Alba would actually do when he plays on the wing. Maybe we could put a filter to try and find out how he actually gets on compared to when he plays as a striker. Salah is an out-and-out winger. He's not a striker. I know he might play there for Egypt sometimes, but that is very it's very synonymous with teams which have a very, very key player. Like you think about Sweden with Ibrahimovic, who is obviously a striker. You think about Portugal with Cristiano Ronaldo, who's usually a winger put into that striking role. And it's a sort of a similar thing with Egypt. They've got Salah. They've got obviously Trezeguet, who I believe has signed for Aston Villa as well. But they move Salah more central because they know that they need the goals that he can bring, and by putting him in that striking position, it's more likely you'll get them. João Sadonka says, I'm French and have watched him. I support Marseille. He's not an £80 million player. This is throwing money at big names. Again, he's 30 million at best. Wow, that's some very brave statements. To be fair, you can't really quantify money in this football market anymore. You just can't do it. You can't quantify the fact that these teams or these players are worth that much, because it's quite simple. The market has gone absolutely balmy with all these deals that are going on. When we're seeing the likes of Harry Maguire being linked for £80 million, we're seeing Neymar move for £200 million. I don't think money comes into it as a. You can't look at a graph, and if you're looking at a graph and you've got value along the bottom and skill along the left hand side, or ability on the left hand side, it's not going to be a straight line between the two. It's simply not, because the value is so much inflated compared to quality that there's no real correlation between the two anymore. I think it's basically down to the fact that he's a young player. He's got a long-term contract, as far as I'm aware. He had a fantastic season. Plenty of teams are in for him, and off the back of that, you're going to see an extremely high fee for the player. And Lille will want to get as much as they possibly can. I'm going to finish things there because I've been going on for 25 minutes. That's absolutely flown by. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have, please give it a like. Thank you to the over 500 of you that have been watching live. Honestly, it means a lot to me that you guys tune in for these shows. I really appreciate it. I'll be back again tomorrow for another show. Only one note, because I'm away. I'm away in the afternoon, off to a comedy show. Going to watch Spurs' New Ground. So yeah, but yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. Please give it a like if you have. Please leave a comment in the description if you're watching on playback. Go watch the show I did on Pepe and Zaha, the comparison between those two players. It was some really good stuff and really in depth. I've also done a video on William Saliba and I did a Q&A with French football expert Jeremy Smith, which you can also go check out on the channel. There's lots of stuff on him, and if we sign Pepe, I've already spoken to Jeremy Smith and he's going to definitely come back on the show for another Q&A talking about him as well. Thank you ever so much. I'll see you very soon, and as always, up the Arsenal.